Og du siger velkommen, ja, igen og igen, hvor end vi går hen. Velkommen hjem, velkommen hjem, igen og igen. Velkommen hjem, igen og igen, hvor end vi er endt. Velkommen hjem, velkommen hjem, igen og igen. Du fylder mit glas og hilser med fred. Du hører min sang, og du nynner med. Du tilgiver alt, og jeg ånder frit. Du deler din skat, siger alt det der vildt. Jeg hører din stemme, hører din stemme. Og du siger velkommen hjem, igen og igen, hvor end vi går hen. Velkommen hjem, velkommen hjem, igen og igen. Velkommen hjem, igen og igen, hvor end vi er endt. Velkommen hjem, velkommen hjem, igen og igen. Vi skal bo i Herrens hus. Alle dage. Vi skal bo i Herrens hus. Alle dage. Velkommen hjem, igen og igen, hvor end vi går hen. Velkommen hjem, velkommen hjem, igen og igen. Velkommen hjem, igen og igen, hvor end vi er endt. Velkommen hjem, velkommen hjem, igen og igen.
Har du tænkt på, at Gud er ret fantastisk? Han kan være overalt på samme tid. Man kan altid regne med ham, men ikke altid regne ud, hvad han har gang i lige nu. For han kender alle sprog, han er helt ufattelig klog, og hans hjerte banker højt for dig. Vi ved, at Gud er altid med. Er du med? Vi ved, at Gud er altid med. Er du med? Øst, vest, syd og nord. Hver en plet, hvor end vi bor. Gud er altid med. Er du med? Har du hørt om, at Gud er uden grænser? altid med? Er du med? Er du med? Er du med? Er du med? Gud er altid med. Er du med? Er du med? Er du med? Vi ved, at Gud er altid med. Er du med? Vi ved, at Gud er altid med. Er du med? Hey, hey. Øst, vest, syd og nord. Der er let, hvor end vi bor. Gud er altid med. Er du med? Vi ved, at Gud er altid med. Er du med? Vi ved, at Gud er altid med. Er du med? Er du virkelig, virkelig med? Øst, vest, syd og nord. Der er let, hvor end vi bor. Gud er altid med. Er du med? Er du med? Gud er altid med. Er du med?
Jeg lader mig fylde igen. Herre, jeg er åben, lader dig komme ind. I min skrøbelige skål skal der stadig fyldes på. Jesus, kilden til liv og kraft. Min sjæl priser Herren almægtig. Du gør ild til din tjener, far frem på vindens vinger. Min sjæl priser Herren barmhjertig. Du er trofast og kærlig. Syng halleluja, halleluja. Syng halleluja.
Jeg drikker dybt af din strøm. Herre, jeg er åben. Jeg har brug for din ånd. Lad din kilde springe ud i mit indre som en flod.
Jesus, kilden til liv og kraft. Min sjæl priser Herren almægtig. Du gør ild til din tjener, far frem på vindens vinger. Min sjæl priser Herren barmhjertig. Du er trofast og kærlig. Syng halleluja. Syng halleluja. Halleluja. Tænk, at du er her, himlens konge. Tænk, at du tager plads i den tomme. Tænk, at du går ned til det lave, fylder mig op. Tak, at der er nok til min næste. Tak, at jeg er sendt til den mindste. Tak, at jeg må gå med den største, som fylder mig op. Min sjæl, pris ham, Herren almægtig. Du gør ild til din tjener, far frem på vindens vinger. Min sjæl, pris ham, Herren barmhjertig. Du er trofast og kærlig. Syng halleluja. Syng
og fyldte hjerter. Det er alt vi har. Vi bliver frie, når vi giver os til dig. Kom tag vor knuste hjerter, for det er alt vi har. Vi bliver frie, når vi giver os til dig. For du er stærk, og du er god. Vi har tillid til dig, vores Gud. Du som bærer jorden, du bærer os. Du som elsker verden, du elsker os. Vi giver os til dig. Du som fylder himlen, du fylder os. Du som er for evigt, du er hos os. Vi giver os til dig. 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 Du som bærer jorden, du bærer os. Du som
God aften. Så er der igen aftenmøde på SommerOase. Kan I holde varmen? Der er sådan en bevægende fornemmelse allerede, kan jeg se heroppe fra. Det ser godt ud faktisk. Så vift bare videre. Jeg kan mærke det lidt her. Hvad hedder det? Vi skal starte med at synge en sang, som er ny. Er I med på det? Teksten er nem. Man skal op og stå, så går det bedst. Og det lyder sådan her. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hvad siger du bare?
Du taler os op, giv os værdighed. Når vi vakler, har du lovet os at være med. Drømmer med os, større end vi forstår. Når vi tvivler, er du stadig med, hvor end vi
Lad os tage det en gang til.
taler os op, giv os værdighed. Når vi vakler, har du lovet os at være med. Du drømmer med os, større end vi forstår. Når vi tvivler, er du stadig med, hvor end vi går. Frygt for fortid holder os tilbage, så vi har brug for din velsignelse i dag. Kom og tag os med. I dit lys er der lethed, vi er fri ved sammen med dig. Kom og tag os med. I dit lys er der lethed, vi er fri sammen med dig. Bryder den ned, de drømme vi lever med. Kom og åbn vores hjerter for din virkelighed. Du kalder os ud fra vores gemmested. Giv os modet til at tage skridt i ukendthed. Frygt for fremtid holder os tilbage, så vi har brug for din velsignelse i dag. Kom og tag os med. I dit lys er der lethed, vi vil leve sammen med dig. Kom og tag os med. I dit lys er der lethed, vi er frie sammen med dig. Se på dig, se som dig.
Så er vi lige så stille i gang her. Ja. Jeg tror, den næste, den kan vi godt få noget fest med her. Hvis jeg nu spiller noget på mit klaver her, så håber jeg, at måske der kan komme noget rigtig højt, sådan måske 2 gange hey, hey. Lad os lige se, hvad der sker, hvis jeg gør sådan her. Så har vi lige sådan et stykke her, hvor vi virkelig skal prøve at synge. Måske endda med lukkede øjne. Det her med at en bøn om, at Gud må høre vores lovsang. Prøv at synge godt med her.
Hør vores lovsang. Hør vores stemmer. Du er den, der elsker. Du er den, der giver. Hør vores lovsang.
Hør vores lovsang.
Tak. Så er vi i gang. Velkommen igen til aftenmøde her i det store telt. Hvor er det dejligt at være sammen med jer igen. Jeg hedder Arne, og jeg er landesleder i Børne- og Ungdomsoase. Og jeg skal lede jer igennem aften her sammen med...
Jeg hedder Christoffer, og jeg er præst i Fyns valgmenighed, og så er jeg en del af lederskabet her i DanskOase. Og inden vi glemmer det, så skal jeg huske at sige, hvis du har brug for oversættelse fra engelsk, aftens taler er på engelsk, så gå ned til bordet ned i bagenden dernede og få sådan en lille radio. De skulle være tjekket og testet og fungere, og så kan du få dansk oversættelse i øret. Så er vi jo kommet sådan et godt stykke hen på ugen i dag. Det er onsdag, og så der har tit været den her snak om, at det er også 3 år siden, og hvor er det dejligt, vi er tilbage. Og vi tænkte over inden, det var måske et godt tidspunkt sådan lige at gøre status. Hvordan var det egentlig lige at komme tilbage til SommerOase her i Horsens? Så Arne, nu hvor vi har været nogle dage, hvad har du opdaget, at du egentlig har savnet mest på det her store SommerOase?
Jeg har savnet rigtig meget, og det jeg nyder at se allermest, det er, hvordan børn og unge, de bare sådan klumper sig sammen i klynger, og nærmest sådan sidder oven på hinanden og vælter oven i hinanden. Og det er uanset, om det er på mini-oase eller oppe i ungdomslejren, oppe i Tune-up. Det er cirka det samme. Ja. Men hvad har der været det bedste for dig, Christoffer?
Jeg ved ikke, altså vi havde 2 fantastiske lokale sommeroaser på Fyn, og det var virkelig godt. Men da jeg kom tilbage hertil, så tror jeg alligevel, det som har været fedt, det har været at opleve, at det vi oplever, Gud gør langt ude på Fyn, og få det koblet op med sådan en stor historie af, hvad Gud gør ud over hele Danmark i den her store familie, og sådan få det rodfæstet i det synes jeg har været virkelig en god oplevelse.
Fedt.
Ja. Måske skulle vi sende den ud til jer også. Prøv lige at tænke bare lige et øjeblik, og så sig til din sidemand, hvad har egentlig været det bedste ved at lande her på SommerOase i år, indtil nu? Man må ikke sige noget om varmen, men alt muligt andet. Bare lige tage 20 sekunder fra nu af.
Ja, I har oplevet rigtig meget godt, lyder det til. Og den snak kan I jo fortsætte eventuelt ude i forteltene lidt senere. Og det fede er jo, eller ikke det fede, men man kan sige, at SommerOase, det varer kun en uge om året. Men prøv at tænke, hvis SommerOase kunne vare 5 måneder. Det skal vi se en video om nu.
Jeg har fået en masse god undervisning her på højskolen, som har fået mig til at reflektere og overveje, hvem jeg selv er og hvem Gud er.
Jeg har oplevet et fællesskab, hvor der er plads til at være den, man er, hvor man ikke skal præstere noget, og hvor man bare kan være sig selv.
Man skal tage på efterskolen, fordi her lærer vi ikke bare om, hvad der står i Bibelen på et teoretisk plan. Vi lærer os om, hvordan vi skal omsætte det til praksis.
Jeg hedder Jakob Svarts, og jeg er så heldig at være forstander på Oasehøjskolen, som vi lige så et lille videoklip af. Oasehøjskolen, det er en kristen højskole. Jeg kan høre, der er flere tidligere elever her i aften. Det er skønt. Det er en kristen højskole, hvor vi ser, at mennesker, de rejser sig som mennesker. De vokser i deres kristne tro, og de tager ansvar for verden omkring sig. På Oasehøjskolen, der er frirum til fællesskab og fordybelse. Der er morgenhår, fællessang, hygge, eventyr, bøn, ulykkelige forelskelser, livshistorier og alt det andet, som hører til det at være et menneske, det at leve. Her i aften vil jeg gerne fortælle jer, at vi er DanskOases højskole. Vi er tydeligt af Oase, men vi er ikke kun for Oase. Ligesom DanskOase er en bevægelse, der vil være midt i samfundet, er vi også en højskole, der vil være højskole for Danmarks ungdom. Og vi ser, at en tredjedel af vores elever, de kommer fra oase-baggrund cirka. Resten kommer bredt fra det danske kirkeliv, missionsorganisationerne, fra Pinsekirken, baptisterne, katolikkerne, og folk helt uden en særlig stor kirketilknytning kommer også hos os. Og det er en stor glæde at have sådan et rummeligt fællesskab. Som en tidligere elev siger det, i tiden op til skolestart, der var jeg nervøs for, om jeg var erfaren nok i Bibelen til at kunne være elev på skolen. Men da jeg startede, der oplevede jeg, at der var plads til alle slags mennesker og alle slags spørgsmål, og at det slet ikke kun handlede om bibelundervisning. Men det er der også. Fordi på Bibels grundlag, der udforsker vi de temaer, som er aktuelle og relevante for os i tiden i dag. Klima, bæredygtighed, identitet, digital undergravelse af vores demokrati. Vi snakker ikke bare om det, men vi prøver at udleve det i praksis. Vi siger, hvis ikke du kan gøre det, har du heller ikke lært det. Så for eksempel så flyver vi ikke, når vi skal på vores fællestur til udlandet. I stedet for så har vi fede eventyr, for eksempel med nattog til Caminoen i Spanien. Fordi vores tro og vores værdier skal kunne ses sammen i praksis. Så tager vi i livtag med det. Det er at være menneske. Vi udforsker kreativitet, musik, keramik, naturen, vores private økonomi, vores budget, alt det, der hører livet til. Og jeg vil godt sige, at eleverne er heldigvis forskellige, når de ankommer. Så sker der noget med dem. Og heldigvis er de forskellige, når de tager afsted igen. Lad mig give ordet til 2 tidligere elever. Og en, der fortæller, at jeg var gået lidt i stå i min tro og savnede at udforske Gud igen. Det blev vi virkelig guidet i. Det var rigtig fedt at rykke sig så meget i min tro. Og da jeg stoppede på skolen, kunne jeg slet ikke lade være med at tale om tro med alle, jeg mødte. Og en anden fortæller har haft en anden oplevelse. Min relation til Gud har været udfordret i nogle år. På Oase og højskolen, der har jeg oplevet, hvordan troen kan redde andre. Jeg har selv oplevet enkelte ting, som har gjort relationen mellem Gud og jeg tættere. Så selvom rejsen stadigvæk er udfordrende, har jeg markant større at gå på mod og håb for min tro i fremtiden. Det er det, der sker på Oase-højskolen. Folk rejser sig i tro. Og mange af jer støtter fantastisk godt op om højskolen og har gjort det fra start af. Tusind tak for det. Det er gaver fra jer, der har gjort det muligt, at vi kunne købe de smukke historiske bygninger her ved årsskiftet. Og mange af jer bakker op om højskolen i bøn og på anden vis. Men helt konkret, så vil jeg godt bede jer om jeres hjælp i aften. Jeg vil godt invitere jer til at hjælpe flere unge med at få et livsforvandlende højskoleophold. Jeg skal ikke gøre det for min skyld kun, jeg skal gøre det for de unges skyld. Fordi det er livsforvandlende at være på højskolen. Lige netop i den her uge, der giver vi 5.000 kroner i rabat til dem, som tilmelder sig efterårsholdet under SommerOase. Vi er så lidt i kulderede i varmen. Så hvem kender du, som skal prikkes til, sådan at de overvejer at tage på Oase-højskolen? Måske ikke lige nogen i hovedet, der du lige først tænker på, men er der en nevø, en nabo, en niece, et barnebarn? Og skal du så hjælpe dem med at komme på højskole? Der er mange unge, der kæmper med økonomien og får råd til det her højskoleophold. Skal du give dem en hånd og sige, jeg vil godt hjælpe dig til at komme på Oase-højskolen, fordi jeg tror, at det er godt for dit liv, for din tro. Hvis du har nogle spørgsmål til, hvad det vil sige at tage på højskole, så kom ned til os på 20 op. Der står vores nuværende og tidligere elever i caféen og vil gerne snakke. Jeg vil også rigtig gerne snakke med jer. For det er fedt at komme på højskole. Der sker noget fedt. Og jeg vil slutte med endnu en tidligere elev, der fortæller, hvad hun fik ud af opholdet. Hun siger, jeg har lært sindssygt meget om mig selv. Jeg kan og er meget mere, end jeg tror. Det er det, der sker på højskolen. Tak for jeres støtte.
Ja, vi har også samlet lidt ind i løbet af ugen her i det store telt. Det skal vi også gøre i aften. Og i løbet af den her tid, vi har været samlet her, der har vi samlet 136.000 kroner ind indtil videre her i det store telt. Og i går, der var der sponsorløb nede på Between. Ja, det kan man godt huge lidt af. Fordi de samlede 260.000 kroner ind. Nu er det jo ikke en konkurrence. Men hvis nu det var, så tænker jeg, at Storetel skal til at op sig lidt, hvis vi skal nå det beløb, som betweenerne de samlede ind på en enkelt dag. Nej, men altså, vi er her alle sammen, fordi vi godt kan lide at være på SommerOase. Vi er her nok alle sammen også, fordi vi på den ene eller på den anden måde godt kan lide noget af det, som DanskOase eller Børne- og Ungdomsoase gør. Så skal vi ikke bare give en god gave i aften. Og hvordan gør vi det?
Det synes jeg er en fremragende idé, og helt praktisk, så gør man det ved at indbetale nogle penge på Mobile Pay heroppe, 77 11 77. Og hvis du sidder og tænker, at du vil have en kvittering, så kan du gå ned ved bordet bagved. Men jeg fik lige at vide af bogholderiet, at hvis du tidligere er registreret som gavegiver i DanskOase, så får du automatisk fradrag for den gave, du indbetaler på Mobile Pay. De har simpelthen krydset nogle informationer der. Så endnu en god grund til bare at give den gas. Så, det er der lige sådan 20 sekunder til eller sådan noget, så fortsætter vi med at synge.
Vi spiller et fint langt forspil her, så I kan sagtens nå det. Og så kan man så rejse sig op, når man er færdig med at betale der, så kan jeg se, hvornår vi er klar. Er det ikke smart? Det tænker jeg umiddelbart. Så hvis I har afklaret det der, ja, så kan man, ja, sådan der. Så begynder man bare at rejse sig op. Lad os synge, ærens konge kommer. Ærens konge kommer, vi lukker hjertet op. Ærens konge kommer, vi lukker hjertet op.
Gør døren høj, gør porten vild. Den ærens konge kommer hid. Han hersker
Ja, og så er vi godt i gang lidt tidligt her i aften med en ny sang, og den vil vi gerne gentage nu, så vi lige får den lidt mere ind under huden. Men vi skal have en lille bevægelse på. Kan vi ikke lave beatet, Jens Ole? Kan du lave den? Yes. Så laver vi sådan højre og venstre. Det gjorde vi også i går. Det gik rigtig godt. Lad os gøre det. Højre, venstre. Eller det er omvendt for jer. Det er den vej og den vej. Sådan der. Yes. Og så tænker jeg egentlig godt, at hænderne de kan lave klapperen der. Yes, det ser godt ud. Yes. Og fødderne laver højre og venstre. Lad os da prøve. 2, 3, og så synger man bare med.
en varm, åben favn, lyttende ører, øjne, der kigger lige ind i vores øjne og hjerte. Hjælp os til at give det hele til dig. Alt det, du står med lige nu, er hvad end det er. Gud er god. Gud er omsorgsfuld. Gud er stærk. Gud vil gerne have det og være med dig i det. Så bare inviterer dig til at åbne dit hjerte. Inviterer dig til at synge det ud, du gerne vil give, eller tænke det, eller opleve det. Vi giver os dig. Vi giver os til dig. Vi giver det hele til dig. Alt det gode, alt det smadre. Vi giver os til dig. Alt de udlagte drømme, alle de gode stunder. Vi giver det til dig. Vi giver det til dig. Vi giver os til dig. Vi giver os til dig. Bare bliv ved. Vi giver os til dig. Vi giver det hele Gud. 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 For Gud er stærk. For du er stærk. Gud er god. Vi har tillid til dig, vores Gud. For du er stærk. Du er god. Han er god. Vi har tillid til dig. Du som bærer jorden. Du som bærer jorden. Du bærer os. Du som elsker verden. Du elsker os. Vi giver os til dig. Du som hylder vinden, du fylder os. Du som er for evigt, du er hos os. Vi giver os til dig. Vi giver os til dig. Vi giver os til dig. Alt det ene. Vi giver os til dig.
Nogle gange, så skal man zoome ud. Så skal man lidt op i luften, for lige at få et nyt perspektiv. Er I med på at komme ud og flyve en lille smule? Kom lidt op i luften! Kunne det ikke være meget fedt? Især når der er lidt lunt hernede ved jorden. Så lad os da komme lidt op til luften. Kan I mærke det? Der kommer en vind her, tror jeg. Og hvis man har en indre luftguitar, så kan man måske svinge den i aften her. Lad os prøve at se, hvad der sker. For lige om lidt, så tager Thomas heden. Er I klar? 1, 2, 3.
Syndens små gør hjertet hårdt. Men alt mørkt kan elskes bort. Vi spejler os i kærlighed. Befri, bevæg din menighed. Vi er Herrens folk, vi er hans helligdom. Vi vil ære dig. Vi vil ære dig. Du regerer alt, der i din faderhånd. Vi beundrer dig. Vi beundrer dig. Ja, far i himlen, det er dig, vi synger til. Og vi beundrer dig. Tak, tak, tak for alt det, du gør, og det, du har gjort og vil gøre for os. Tak, fordi vi aldrig skal være alene. Tak, fordi du altid er med. Tak, fordi der aldrig er noget, vi skal være i tvivl om, at du vil være ved siden af os i. Altid, hvor end vi går, så er du der, far. Tak, tak, tak for det. Og tak for det, at vi må synge til dig, som er alting skaber, til dig, som har gjort alting godt. Tak for det. Tag imod vores pris. Din kærlighed er over os og binder os sammen. Vi synger det til hinanden. Vi bærer os, og vi kan bære hinanden. Vi ser dig i vor næstes øjne, mund og hænder. Du er her. Ja, du er her. Lad os synge det en gang til. Din kærlighed. Din kærlighed er over os og binder os sammen. Du bærer os, og vi kan bære hinanden. Vi ser dig i vor næstes øjne, mund og hænder. Ja, du er her. Ja, du er her. Tak. Du er her. Du er virkelig her. Du er her. Ja, du er. Ja, du er her. Du er virkelig her. Du er her. Hersker os her. Du er her. Du er her. Himmelens konge. Du er her. Far til alle. Du er her. Er vi med? 2, 3. Vi er Herrens folk. Vi er hans helligdom. Vi vil ære dig. Vi vil ære dig. Du regerer alt, der i din skaberhånd. Vi beundrer dig. Ja, vi beundrer Herrens folk. Vi er Herrens folk. Vi er hans helligdom. Vi vil ære dig. Vi vil ære dig. Du regerer alt, der i din faderhånd. Vi beundrer dig. Vi beundrer dig. For du er her. Ja, du er her.
Før vi inviterer aftenens taler på scenen, vil I så ikke lige være med til, bare lige at række hænderne ud, og så være med til at bede for alle de her skønne børn, der er oppe foran. Evig Gud, tak for børnene, tak for deres livsglæde, tak for deres dans. Jeg beder dig om, at de vil vokse op og lære dig at kende. Amen. Ariana, welcome to the stage. And welcome back.
Good to be back.
And thank you for your message yesterday. And tonight you will share something about freedom as a journey.
Yeah.
And that we may long for like this instant miracle. And of course, God sometimes works that way. But more often than not, he might invite us on a journey instead.
He does, so we'll
Yeah.
talk about that.
Okay, well, let's pray for you. And I'd like to invite you to join the prayer by reaching out.
Thank you, Jesus.
Dear God, I thank you for Ariana. I thank that she is your child. I pray that you will touch her lips tonight so that she will speak your beautiful truth. And I pray that you will touch our ears and hearts that we may listen. Amen.
Thank you. Wow, you people can worship, right? You are not letting the heat stop you. How many of you been thinking about snow today? Yeah. I might have another snow story for you later on. Well, you know how some messages that some preachers preach make you just go, wow. This one is not wow. The message I'm about to preach is going to be ow. That's okay, you can't always have candy. Sometimes you need to eat your greens. You need to hear the things that are good for you to hear. I'm going to talk about the fact that our breakthrough, the things that we may be looking towards, praying in faith for, waiting and believing for, those breakthroughs aren't always the end, they are the beginning. You see, your breakthrough needs walkthrough. Many of us, as people, we want to skip the process, skip the bit where we have to wait or prepare or be involved. Like, I don't know if it's something about the culture that we're in right now where we just don't like to wait for things. We don't like the process of things. We're being conditioned more and more to have things instantly. The other day was upset, almost so upset that I was going to write an email to Amazon because they said that they were going to deliver my item by 10 p.m. this same day, and it wasn't. It didn't come till the day after. And I was going to complain. And I was like, hang on a second. We are being told that we can have things straight away. We want microwave food instantly if we have to wait for it. You know, there's some people who enjoy the process of preparation, of putting all the things together in the recipe and cutting the vegetables and letting it marinate and going through the process so that they can enjoy the meal. Most of us just want to do and have the meal straight away. Well, I do anyway. I'm not a cook. But there's something really important about process that we need to understand. Though many of us might want to skip the hard bit, the study so we can have the qualification, or having to go through, you know, the process of birth to have a baby, or the application process if you want to adopt a baby. There are so many processes that are important for us to partner with and understand. God is a God of process. He loves process. He came up with the idea. I know that because if I go to the beginning in Genesis, the very beginning of creation, when he created the heavens and the earth and everything we see and touch, and the fish in the sea and the birds in the air and the stars in the sky, everything he created, I believe fully that he could have done that in an instant. He could have done it. He is so powerful that he could have done it in a breath, with a thought, with one word, in a moment, in a fraction of a second. He could have created everything in its wholeness and in its perfection, and yet he chose to submit himself to process. He decided, he modeled something for us to understand. He modeled step by step, day by day, layer by layer. And you know what else he modeled? He modeled celebrating along the way. He did one thing, separated light and dark. It's good. Let's pause. I could do a whole message about the fact that we need to pause more. Like, it was good. He celebrated the imperfect. He celebrated the not yet finished. He celebrated that it's on its way. We're not there yet, but we're celebrating the little bit that we've done. Let's be those who get better at celebrating the step and the layer and the short, small victories that we have every day. You know, I'm here to tell you that there is no shortcut, I'm afraid. Yes, God does miracles. God has instant moments of setting us free. I have seen it, I've witnessed it, I've been a part of it, I've had it happen in my own life, but there's always a walkthrough attached to the breakthrough that we might have. Because like I said, breakthrough is not the end, breakthrough is the beginning. You know, I think that process is something that has a purpose. It builds something deep inside of us that will always outlast the instant encounter. The coming forward to the prayer line is a good thing to do. I would encourage you to do that when you have an opportunity, but it is only a part of the journey. It's only a part of the process. It is something that helps you along the way. It's not the event in and of itself. I want to go to a story in the Bible and explore and unpack a little bit more about what God has in mind when he invites us to partner in a process. Because there's always purpose to it. God isn't just interested in making us jump through hoops in order for us to prove something to him. No, there's a purpose. And there's a power in process that I want to show you in this story that's found in 2 Kings 5, verse 1. It's a story about a man called Naaman. And Naaman was a commander in the army of God. He was very successful, and it says here in verse 1, now Naaman was a commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, brave. He was successful, but he had leprosy. So here we have a good man, a victorious man, a powerful man, a strong man, a commander, a general in the army, but do you know we all have buts? You're all sitting on yours right now. We all have stuff. We all have a but. But he had leprosy, but there's stuff that we need to deal with. There's stuff that if we don't deal with it will hold us back. However, what's interesting to me, and this is just a side point, we often use our buts as reasons for God not to use us. But Naaman was used by the Lord despite his but. You know, the Bible is full of people who had buts, who had issues, who had reasons why God might not use them. And I found over the years that God is a lot less fussy about who he will use than we are. We put way higher expectations on who and what God will use than God does. You just have to look in the Bible. We've got Moses with anger issues. We've got David with a whole lot of issues. We have Saul, who was desperately insecure. We've got Esther, who was a victim of sexual exploitation. We've got Rahab, the prostitute, Thomas, the doubter, Peter, the hothead. Peter cut an ear off, for goodness sake. Anyone in here cut an ear off recently? Right? God still used him mightily. You know what, the one that encourages me the most? It's the fact that God used a donkey to speak. It makes me feel so much better when I read that God opened the mouth of a donkey and he said words to direct a man of God. I'm like, okay, that's all right. I can do this with God because he used a donkey. So some of us need to stop using our buts as excuses for God not to use us. However, there does come a point in our lives where if we don't deal with the stuff, if we don't deal with the issues, if we don't deal with the but, it's going to start causing us to shrink back. It's going to start causing us harm. It's going to start, in the case of Naaman, parts of his body were going to drop off. The leprosy is a serious disease. It's a serious issue. You know, some of us need to get to a point that Naaman did where he decided that enough was enough. This leprosy was getting out of control, and if he wasn't going to continue to be used by God, if he was going to continue to be a mighty man, then he needed to deal with his issues. And so, he has heard about God, and he goes and finds in 2 Kings 5 verse 9 to 12. I really should be wearing glasses. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, "Go, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed." But Naaman went away angry and said, "I thought that he would surely come out to me, stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of my leprosy." How many of us have prayed that prayer? I just want God to do his thing and to get rid of all the stuff that's causing me a problem in my life. God, come and do your work. God, come and we invite God in and we think God is going to do this. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in a rage. Here we have a perfect example of a person wanting to have an instant breakthrough. He wants to have the experience, the encounter. He wants to have this hand waved over his life and everything be solved in one go. He wants to have his breakthrough. He's desperate for his breakthrough. He's traveled all this way for the breakthrough. And here we have a God inviting him into a partnership of process. You know, the fact is that we often have a much greater part to play in our breakthrough than we want to admit. And to be honest with you, I don't blame Naaman. I have seen the River Jordan with my own eyes. It is not a place I would want to get in. Seriously, I went, it smelt bad. There was things floating on the top of it that I didn't want to get close enough to see what it was. There was flies everywhere, and it was like a dirty, dirty brown, like a dirty brown. I'm like, I am not surprised that Naaman didn't want to get in that water. It is dirty water. And he's saying, how can dirty water make me clean? It doesn't even make any sense what you're saying to me, Lord. There's this, I want the instant, you're saying walk through. I want breakthrough, you're saying walk through. But the thing you're telling me to do doesn't even make sense. Dirty water can't make me clean. You know, for us, we say, how can forgiveness set me free? Feels like a dirty river. It feels like I'm letting them off. It feels like I'm saying it's okay what they did. It feels like I'm just, you know, going to allow them to do all those things. And we had a whole session today on forgiveness. So everybody in the room who was there, you all know now what it really means. But it's this dirty river, this way that we can't quite understand, that God would ask us to do something, to dip in a river. How can surrender, which feels weakness, which feels like we have to bow our knee and give in, how can surrender to God actually be strength? It's a dirty river. It doesn't make sense. How could worship, when you don't feel like it, when you feel like there's nothing to worship about in your life, when you look around and it's just hard and difficult and challenging, and you know, you're supposed to try and open your mouth and worship, how can choosing to step into a dirty river of worshiping when you don't feel like it, how can that make you clean? Oh, but it does. It does. Opening your mouth and exalting him is a step along the way to your healing and your wholeness. Thankfully, Naaman had people around him who talked sense to him. They said, hey, you've come all this way. All you're being asked to do is dip in a river 7 times. It's not that difficult. I know it's dirty, but just push through. You're going to be okay. And so he listens. He changes his mind. And in verse 14, it says this, he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him. And his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. There is always purpose in God's process. You see, Naaman wanted healing on the outside, but I believe God did something on the inside of Naaman too. And I'm going to share with you 3 P's. Now, it's P's in English. For the translator out there, I'm really sorry, it's not going to be as neat. But there's 3 P's of process. And the first P that Naaman had to learn in this powerful process that God invited him into was that his pride was put aside. Now let me explain that to you. Pride is us wanting to hide our weakness. It is not wanting to ask for help. It's not wanting to fail. It's not wanting to appear weak. It's not wanting to, we want to fix ourselves. We want to appear to have it all together and be successful. You know, Naaman was a man of success. Everywhere he went, people knew who he was. He had an entourage with him. He had chariots and servants, and he wore his armor. Everybody knew who he was. And in order for him to do what God had asked him to do and to go into the river and dip 7 times, you know what he had to do? He had to take his armor off. He had to take off the thing that everybody knew him for, his influence, his success, his status, had to be put aside. For him to take off the armor means maybe all he had underneath was just a plain cotton tunic. Maybe people could see his leprosy. You see, he was down at a river where everybody was. There's children playing in the water. God help them. There was women washing their clothes there. There was a gathering around the river. He wanted to be privately seen to by the man of God with a quick fix and then go on his way. Don't tell anybody that I came to see you. Don't tell them that I have a weakness. Don't tell them that I have a butt. Don't tell them that I'm not okay. I need everybody to think that I'm okay. Do it privately. Do it quick. Do it secretly. But no, Naaman had to put his pride aside and go where the others were and submit and dip into a river. See, if you go into a river with your armor on, if you go into a process that God has invited you into and you are fully armored up with all the things you hide behind, with all the things you wrap your heart in to protect yourself, you will not be able to go through the process of dipping down in the river of God. Because if Naaman would have gone down in that river with all his armor up, he probably wouldn't have come back up again. There's no way you're going to go into a raging river with all the armor and be able to stand back up. He had to take off the things that he had put in place to guard his heart and allow God close enough that the water could touch the areas that he was the most embarrassed about. Pride needs to be put aside. Recently, we've all lost 2 years of our life. So every time I say recently, I think it's like a year ago, and it's not, it's 3 years ago because we had 2 years. So 2019, we went skiing. There's your snow. Told you there'd be more snow. Remember snow? We went skiing in the French Alps, and we've been skiing for 15 years, and I believe that snow is there to get you from A to B as fast as possible. I don't like touching it. It's cold, it's wet. I have done probably 15 years without falling over. I just make sure that I stay on my skis. So this particular run we were doing, I took a bad turn and I fell and I heard a pop. You don't want to hear a pop in your knee when you fall over. And immediately, because I never fall, my family, my sons, my husband, my brother-in-law, everybody's around me. Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm fine. It doesn't hurt. I'm all right. I'll get up. My ski's still on. I'm fine. I'm fine. Back away. Leave me alone. I don't fall. I don't need you. I don't need you to lift me up. Back off. So I got myself up. I'm back on my skis. I'm testing it out, it's gonna be all right. And then I start down again, and as I do my first turn, the pain was awful. And I sat down and I was like, I am not okay. And so my son skis down and gets the help, and I had that awful, embarrassing experience. If there's any skiers in here, you'll know what I mean, of having to be put on a stretcher at the top of the mountain, strapped in, and skidooed backwards down the mountain, with everybody looking at you with an equal mixture of pity and relief. The same look that I have given people for 15 years as they've been skidooed past me. I'm so sorry, and I'm so glad it's not me, and it was me. And as I was going backwards down the mountain, annoyed that I'd fallen over, I felt God say to me, isn't it interesting how rescue didn't come until you said you weren't okay? For some of you, your pride needs to be put aside, because rescue is not going to come until you say you're not okay. Part of the process of healing and freedom and restoration is, in fact, the beginning of the process is saying you're not okay. The second P was that persistent obedience was grown. I'll explain this. Naaman was asked to dip 7 times. Now 7 is one of those important, significant numbers in the Bible. It is, it's symbolic of perfection, of completion, of wholeness. Basically what the man of God was saying to Naaman was, you get in that water, that river called process, and you dip until it's done. Not once, not twice, not 3, but 7. 7 as in you keep going until you're done. You keep going until it's finished. Go again, keep forgiving. And we talked about that in our session today. You keep renewing your mind. So many of us think that that freedom is this destination, that once we do the things we're supposed to do, we'll get there, wherever there is. And part of my desire tonight is to help you understand that there is no there until we stand before our God and He completes the work He started in us. We are on a journey. We have to keep dipping, keep reading your Bible, keep going to church, keep singing His praises, keep submitting to the process. It'll take time. You know, when I had my accident, what I didn't tell you was actually that I completely ruptured my ACL, which is a ligament behind the knee. Gone. And when that goes, it doesn't get reattached naturally because there's no blood flow. So I needed to go for physio and an operation eventually. But my physiotherapist said something to me that kind of wasn't what I wanted to hear. But it's a truth that we all need to know. Because I was aiming and training for an event that I was doing without an ACL, so I had to do lots of strengthening exercises. And then I did my event and I went back and I hadn't carried on doing the exercises. He said, you've stopped doing the exercises, why? I said, well, because I did the event. I've done that now, I'm finished. He says, no. You don't have an ACL. The exercises I'm showing you are for life. You have to keep doing them because this is now what you need to do to make sure that you never have the same accident again. I was like, oh. I hope you all have an oh moment. There is no, oh, I did the forgiveness thing. Today maybe. What about tomorrow? And the day after that, and the day after that. We are in a process. But celebrate the small steps along the way. Allow yourself the small celebrations, like I said before. The third P is my favorite one. We've had the pride put aside. We've had the persistent obedience. Now we have personal relationship. One of the key purposes, I believe, that God had in mind when He invited Naaman into a powerful process was that a personal relationship was started. You see, when Naaman first went to ask for help, when he first said to the man of God, I need help, I need God, it was, I thought that the Lord, his God. This was not Naaman's God. He had traveled and heard, this was a who do they say Jesus is. He'd heard about God. Someone had told him, and he came because someone else's God might be able to help, and it changed. During the process, it changed from the Lord, his God, to now I know there is no other God in Israel. We know that because it says it here. In verse 11, I thought that he would surely call on the name, the Lord his God. And then verse 15, now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. And verse 17 says, I will never again worship any other God but the Lord. Naaman didn't just get his physical healing. There was something in his heart that was healed. There was a movement in the process from the Lord, his God, to the Lord, my God. It's one of the most special things about going through a process of transformation and healing. When we commit, when we are obedient to what God tells us to do and enter into a river, as it were, there's something that happens in the process that draws us closer to him. I think it's all about relationship. Do you know that God has no intention of abandoning you to the process? He's not standing on the other side, watching you dip in a river again and again and again, waiting for you to tick all the right boxes. No, he's right there with you. He is with us in the process. That is his promise. In Psalm 23, it says, even though I walk through, note, not break through, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. God is with us. That is his commitment. That is his promise. He is Emmanuel, God with us. So whenever we are going through difficult things, when we are committed to process, when we have submitted ourselves to the things we know we need to do in order to keep on keeping on, there is a closeness that comes. He is with us, and he's also given us each other. We're not supposed to do this journey alone. We're supposed to understand that we are all on the same journey. There are not some people who are broken and some people who are not. No, we are all in our own way along a journey. Just some of us have been doing it longer than others. But none of us are there yet. And there is something about the gathered together people, understanding and releasing each other to be on a journey, not to have it all together all the time. That is so powerful and so important. I'm going to close with a story, and I'm going to also invite the worship team to come back up as I close with this particular story. A few years ago, I did an activity, an event called Tough Mudder. Now, I asked a few people, and you don't know what that is. Anyone in here know what Tough Mudder is? No. Oh, one person. Right. So let me explain. It's usually done for charity. You have to be ever so slightly crazy to do it, because it is a 19-kilometer obstacle course which has been designed by the British Special Forces to kill you. It has 28 obstacles. Literally, there are things like you get electrocuted. Yes, really. You have to go into a huge container just full of ice cubes. You take ladders into it, you dip into it, you swim through the ice cubes. You literally have to get back out. You go through mud, you go through tunnels, it's awful. Absolutely awful. I don't even know why. Well, I know why I did it. It's because I run a charity and we have to raise money, so I do crazy things. But this particular year, I'd signed myself up to do this, and we're standing at the start line. There's about 1,000 of us. They keep letting us go in phases. And there's about 1,000 of us, and the music's going, and the guy has got his loudspeaker, and he's pep talking us. He's helping us get ready, and he says to us, and honestly, this man was not a world-class preacher. He's just some guy with a loudspeaker, and he's changed my life. So you better listen to what he said. He said this. He said, look to your left and to your right. So we all look to our left and our right. He said, these people are not your competitors. They are your teammates. Because every obstacle you are about to face has been especially designed for you not to be able to get over it by yourself. I think that is what life is like. Life is too hard. too many obstacles, too challenging for us to do it by ourselves. We have God with us and we have each other with us. And then he said this. He said, the rule for Tough Mudder is this: you go through, then you help through. And so we all had to repeat it 3 times. We go through, then you help through. And I remember halfway through the course, I'm wet, I'm covered in mud, I've been electrocuted, I've been through ice cubes, I'm tired, I'm fed up, I'm at the end of myself, and it's only halfway through. And I'm going through this dark tunnel, and it's kind of on a steep incline, like this. There's water coming down it, and there's gravel in it, and I'm on my belly, doing like a commando crawl through it, and I'm so tired, and I would just want to stop. I'm literally, I can't do this anymore. This is a stupid, stupid idea. And it was this small tunnel, and suddenly, as I look ahead, this hand thrusts into the tunnel. And he says, grab my hand. And I crawl a little bit faster, and this guy grabs my hand, and he pulls me out of the tunnel, and he puts me down, and he gives me a thumbs up, and then he runs away. And I'm about to turn and run when I remember, no, you go through, and then you help through. So I turn myself around and I put my hand into the tunnel, and this girl grabs hold of it, and I wasn't as strong as he, so I couldn't just lift. I'm like pulling her out and yanking her, and I put her down and I give her a thumbs up and I run away. You know, sometimes that's all we need to do. To be there for each other is to go through and then help through. Because we are all in a tough mudder. Life is a tough mudder. And the people to your left and to your right, they are not your competitors. They are your teammates. We are in this together, and we need each other. We need to be those who smile, who cheer each other on, who go, let me just give you a hand and help you out of this tough bit. I wonder if we could stand together if you're able. You see, we're in this for the long haul. This isn't a short sprint, this thing called life. This is a marathon. And so, in a moment, we're going to end the meeting in a slightly different way, but before we do that, I want to just pray over us. I wonder if you can just put your hand on your heart. Lord, I thank you that you are present in this place. Lord, I thank you that even though some are desperately waiting for you to come and show your power, Lord, I pray that they would hear your whisper, come and join me in a powerful process. Lord, I pray for courage. I pray for encouragement. I pray that those who feel right now that they are in the valley of the shadow of death, I pray that they would not sit down and give up and say, this is too hard. I pray that with someone, there'll be a voice that says, come on your feet, on your feet. Keep going, keep stepping. Walk through, walk through, walk through. Holy Spirit, would you be that encourager to each and every one of us? For those who feel alone, Lord, I pray that you would show your presence. And Lord, would you bring good people into their lives? Ones who can extend a hand. And Lord, I pray for all of us that we would remember that we are in this together, that we go through and then we help through. In Jesus' name, amen.
Lad os bare blive stående. Lad os bare blive stående og fortsætte bønnen. Lad os bare blive stående og fortsætte bønnen. Ariana har givet os et stærkt ord og et stærkt kald, både til at holde ud i det, som Gud lægger foran os, også når det er hårdt, men også et kald til at være brødre og søstre, til at være menighed, der bærer hinanden. Og det er det, vi skal gøre nu. Fordi nogle af os kan måske særligt forbinde os til noget af det, som Mariana deler om. Vi kender til lige nu at stå i noget, som sker måske på vores inderside, som er hårdt, og vi ved, at det kommer til at kræve lang vej at gå igennem det. Vi har ikke lyst måske til at afsløre det for nogen. Vi har ikke lyst til det, der ligger foran os. Men nogle gange er Guds vej bare en proces, så det er det, der ligger foran os. Nogle af jer i aften kan særligt forbinde jer med det. Og for nogle er det noget meget dybt og tungt, for nogle er det måske lidt i den lettere ende. Men i dag vil vi rigtig gerne gå sammen med jer, der kan genkende det her, som jeres brødre og søstre. Vi vil gerne være dem, der hjælper. En anden dag er det os, der har brug for hjælp. I dag vil vi gerne være dem, der hjælper. Så lige om lidt, så skal vi bede for jer, og jeg kommer til at bede jer om at række hånden op. I skal ikke fortælle eller forklare. Og så dem, der står omkring, I kan lige, hvis jeg har lyst, være med til at lægge en hånd på skulderen af dem og bede for dem. Enten stille eller højt. Bed for dem i, jeg ved ikke, et par minutter eller 3, eller vi skal nok stoppe det. Hvis du bliver mindet om noget fra Herren, et ord eller et billede, så visk det til dem, eller sig det til dem, hvis du kommer afsted med det, eller skriv det ned og giv det til dem som en opmuntring. Og så er det selvfølgelig den, der modtager eget ansvar og fornemme, er det her til mig, eller er det ikke. Hvis du står et sted, hvor der ikke lige er nogen, der rækker hånden op, så kan du enten søge hen, hvor der er nogen, der gør, eller også så kan du bare bede for nogen, du kommer til at tænke på, som du tænker, de har brug for min forbøn lige nu. Så sådan vil vi have forbøn i aften. Så nu vil jeg bede jer, som kan genkende jer i det her, som Mariana deler om, bare række jeres hånder. Der hvor jer, I kender til, at lige nu er der noget hårdt, I skal gå igennem. Og det kan godt være, at vejen er lang. Nu må I række jeres hånd op, for I er en tryg forsamling af brødre og søstre, som gerne vil gå sammen med jer, fordi vi er ikke skabt til at gå alene. Gud kalder os ikke til at gøre noget alene. Og vi behøver ikke have vores skjold og vores rustning på her, for vi er blandt brødre og søstre, og vi er sammen med vores himmelske far. Så ræk jeres hånd op nu, og jer, der står omkring, bare træk sammen om dem, som har hånden op, og så bare begynde at bede, stille eller højt. Så skal vi nok lukke det heroppe fra. Værsgo. Sagt, hvis I oplever, at Herren minder jer om noget, så del det med vedkommende, I beder for. Himmelske Far, tak fordi du går med os igennem mørkets dal. Når der er noget, vi skal gå igennem, som du ikke bare fikser på et øjeblik, så er dit løfte, at du er helt tæt på. Ligesom gartneren er helt tæt på det blad eller den gren, han beskærer, sådan er du fuldstændig tæt på den, som går der, hvor der er svært. Og der er ikke noget, der kommer som en overraskelse for dig. Og Gud, tak fordi vi må gå med hinanden i det her. Tak fordi vi må gå sammen, vi må hjælpe hinanden. Tak fordi vi frit kan dele med brødre og søstre, for det her det er ikke en konkurrence. Det er en familie. Så Gud, jeg beder om, at du ånder din kraft ud over dem, som har rakt hånden op her i aften. Jeg beder om, at du viser dit lys der, hvor de går nu. Jeg beder om, at du viser, hvad du gør. Bare glimt nok til, at de tør fortsætte vandring. Og jeg beder om, at vi andre må være brødre og søstre, som ser, som beder, som går med. Herre, så dit navn kan blive æret. Amen. Og dem af jer, som har rakt hånden op, kan jeg jo opmuntre til, at du skal overveje, er der noget af det her, jeg skulle dele med nogle andre bagefter? Måske har du allerede gjort det, måske har du faktisk ikke lyst, men find nogen, du har tillid til, og del det, så du ikke skal vandre alene. Og så fortsæt forbønnen ude på pladsen, ude i teltene. Og der er også forbøn herop til morgenmøderne, hedder det formiddagsmøderne, hvor I igen kan gå op og blive bedt for, hvis I oplever, at Helligånden er i gang med at gøre noget i jer.
Ja, på baggrund af den tungetale, der kom herop fra i går, er der kommet en del forskellige udlægninger. Vi har taget en med i aften, som vi tænker er til trøst og til opmuntring, og så kan tale ind i nogle af vores liv, som er her i aften. Fordi Gud, han er med dig i den proces, du går igennem. Jesus, han længes efter nærhed med dig. Udlægningen lyder sådan her. Under tungetalen ser jeg et meget levende og emotionelt stærkt billede, som udelukkende er set som silhuet i lyse nuancer. Jesus sidder knælende på sit højre knæ i samme position, som havde han siddet lidt foroverbøjet på kanten af en stol. Foran ham sidder et menneske på knæ helt tæt foran ham og vendt med fronten mod ham og ansigtet bøjet i hans skød. Efter noget tid begynder Jesus at stryge mennesket blidt over ryggen med højre hånd, og dette fortsætter til længe efter tungetalen er slut. Dernæst samler Jesus sine hænder som en skål over menneskets ryg, og en kilde af vand strømmer fra hans hænder og ned ad menneskets ryg. Fra menneskets ryg fortsætter kilden hen af underlaget, og kilden bliver ved med at løbe. Til sidst drejer Jesus sin overkrop en smule og breder armene ud som vinger over mennesket, så han helt skærmer mennesket. Kilden løber stadig ud derfra. Mennesket bevæger sig på intet tidspunkt.
Ja, vi vil fortsætte med også at synge lidt mere sammen. Det er også en måde at bære hinanden på. Synge ordene sammen. Og styrken i det, det er også noget af det, vi giver hinanden, når vi synger sammen. Lad os synge. Historiens Gud, alt i din fader hånd, himmel og jord, livet blev til ved din guddomsord. Du formede mig i kunstværk af støv og skabelsens land. Lad du dit billede
Lygte hvor end jeg går. Du er hos mig, min ven og min hyrde. Du viser vej. Gud hjælp mig at se og elske og give som dig. Velsignelsens skud, jeg går med din kraft, og du sender ud. Skriv din historie med vores liv, en lovsang til dig, et kærligt brev. Skriv din historie via det folk, du sender. Skriv din historie, skriv dit navn på vores hjerter, korsets tegn. Skriv din historie med vores mund og hænder. Dit ord, der skaber, dit ord, der frelser, dit ord, der sender. Skriv din historie. Dit ord, der skaber, dit ord, der frelser, dit ord, der sender.
Amen. Tror jeg.
Ja, okay, så da. Klokken har passeret 9, og aftenmødet er slut for i aften. Men gå ud i campingvognen eller ud på pladsen. Del jeres historie med hinanden. Bed for hinanden. Opmuntre hinanden. Hvad var det, Gud sagde til dig i aften, og mindede dig om i aften? Og så er der bibeltime i morgen igen.
Yep.
Klokken 9.50.
Yes.
Det er Bodil Skyt, der kommer.
Det er det, og det er om Maria.
Ja, det er Maria Magdalene. Ja. Hvad er der med, vi skal sige?
Tak for i aften. Ha' en god aften.
God aften.
Who, oh Lord, could save themselves? Their own souls could heal. Our shame was deeper than the sea. Your grace is deeper still. Who, oh Lord, who, oh Lord, could save themselves? Their own souls could heal. Our shame was deeper than the sea. Your grace is deeper still. You alone can rescue, you alone can save, you alone can lift us from the grave. You came down to find us, let us out of death. To you alone belongs the highest praise. You